Last summer in Calabasas, California, a group of kids at a nature camp gathered under an oak tree for shade at the end of the day. They heard cracking. A branch roughly 30 feet long came down on top of them. 9 children were underneath it. An 8-year-old boy did not survive. That branch had no visible disease. The tree was standing. Nobody had flagged it. It simply failed on a warm afternoon while children sat beneath it. I am going to walk you through 7 things in your yard that hurt kids every single summer, and the reason I am starting with that story instead of something smaller is that the first item on this list is the one parents are least likely to check for, because it is above their heads and it does not look like a problem. But before we get there, number 5 on this list is the one that sends the most kids to the emergency room by volume. It is not what you think it is, and the reason it catches people is that the injury does not happen the day the child touches it. It happens a day or two later, which means most parents never connect the rash to the yard. I will show you exactly where it hides and how to spot it from 10 feet back so your kid never walks through it. Let me also say this clearly. I am not trying to make you afraid of your own yard. Most of these are a 5-minute check and a 10-minute fix. The problem is not that they are hard to deal with. The problem is that nobody looks. Number 1. Dead branches overhead. Foresters call them widowmakers, and the name is not dramatic. It is descriptive. A dead limb caught in the canopy of a living tree can weigh hundreds of pounds, and it is held in place by friction, not by attachment. Wind, vibration, a heavy rain, or even the process of decay can release it without warning. Certain trees are worse than others, and it is worth knowing which. Silver maples are notorious for weak branch attachments that fail in moderate wind. Bradford pears have a branching pattern that virtually guarantees they split as they mature. Oaks are strong, but their dead limbs are heavy and dense, and when they come down, they do real damage. Willows shed constantly. If you have any of these over a play area, check them first and check them more often. Here is what to look for. And you can do this in 5 minutes without climbing anything. Stand at the base of every tree in your yard and look straight up. You are looking for branches with no leaves when the rest of the tree is green, bark that is missing, or peeling off a limb while the trunk bark is intact, a branch hanging at an angle that does not match the rest of the canopy, and any limb that has a visible crack or split where it meets the trunk, especially if you can see light through the joint. There is one more sign that most homeowners miss. Look for mushrooms or shelf fungus growing out of a branch or at a branch junction. That is not cosmetic. That is the fruiting body of a fungus that has already consumed a significant amount of wood inside the branch. By the time you see it on the surface, the interior structure is compromised. Now look at where your kids actually spend time. The swing set, the trampoline, the sandbox, the spot where they sit and eat popsicles. Is any of that under a mature tree? If it is, check that tree first. A branch under 6 inches in diameter, you can handle yourself with a pole saw if you can reach it safely from the ground. Anything larger, or anything you cannot reach, is a call to an arborist, not a ladder job. People die falling off ladders with chainsaws, more than from the branches themselves. One more thing on this one. After any storm with significant wind, walk the yard before you let anyone out. Not to check for fallen branches, although do that too. To check for branches that moved but did not fall. A limb that shifted position in a storm is a limb that just lost some of the friction holding it up. Next time, it comes down. Number 2. Ground wasp nests. I did a full video on this recently, and it is one of the most watched things on this channel, so I will keep this short. But the child version has one detail the other video did not cover. A yellow jacket nest entrance is about an inch across, and it is almost always hidden in the grass, at a bed edge, under a shrub, or in an old rodent burrow. Your child will not see it. What your child will do is step on it, or run across it, or ride a bike over it, and a colony in late summer holds thousands of workers that sting repeatedly. Here is the child-specific part. A single sting on most kids produces pain and local swelling that is unpleasant but manageable. But anaphylaxis, the systemic reaction that makes breathing difficult and drops blood pressure, kills faster in small bodies because there is less blood volume to dilute the venom and less airway diameter before swelling becomes critical. If your child has ever had a large local reaction to a sting, meaning swelling that extended well beyond the sting site, talk to your pediatrician about whether an epinephrine autoinjector should be in the house. And if one is prescribed, it goes outside with the child. Not in a kitchen drawer. Outside, within reach. The check takes 30 seconds. Walk the yard once and look for insects flying in and out of a single point at ground level. That is the entire method. Do it weekly, between June and October. Number 3. Holes and uneven ground. This one sounds too simple to matter, and it is the one that produces the most orthopedic visits from backyards. Old rodent burrows, half-buried stumps, tree roots that have heaved the surface, a spot where the previous owner pulled a fence post and filled it with loose dirt that has since settled, a sprinkler head that protrudes just enough to catch a bare foot. A child running at full speed hits one of these and goes down hard with a twisted ankle, a broken wrist from the fall, or a knee that bends in a direction it should not. The stump one is the sneakiest. When a tree is cut flush with the ground and a few seasons of grass grow over it, it becomes completely invisible. You mow over it every week, and then a child running barefoot catches a toe on the edge of a hardwood disc buried half an inch below the surface. The injury is not a scrape, it is a hyperextension or a fracture of the toe, because the object does not give. Walk the yard at mowing height and feel the ground with your feet. Anywhere it dips suddenly or gives way, mark it. Fill holes with compacted topsoil, not loose fill, because loose fill settles again in a month and you are back to where you started. Cut protruding roots level with the surface or build the soil up around them so there is a gradual rise instead of a sharp edge. And if there is a stump cut flush with the ground, grind it or dig it out. Mowing over it once a week does not make it shorter. One more on this. If you have a trampoline, check the ground around it, not just under it. Kids land short or overshoot, and the landing zone extends several feet beyond the frame in every direction. That is the zone that needs to be flat, soft, and free of anything hard. Number 4. Rusty metal at ground level. Old fence staples, fence post brackets buried under mulch. A piece of edging that has worked its way up through the soil. The stub of a metal T-post cut off years ago with bolt cutters and now sitting 2 inches above grade, hidden in grass. Kids run barefoot. Dogs dig and expose things. The cut is not the primary danger. The primary danger is that tetanus spores live in soil, and rust provides exactly the irregular surface they cling to. A puncture wound from a rusty piece of metal in a yard is the textbook exposure. Check whether your child's tetanus vaccination is current. Then walk the perimeter, every bed edge, every fence line, and run your hand along the base of any old fence. Anything you find, pull it. A pair of pliers and 10 minutes eliminates the most common puncture wound source in a residential yard. I want to stop here for one thing, and then we get to the 3 that parents miss most often. Everything in this video I had to pull together from extension bulletins, emergency medicine references, and a lot of cross-checking, because the advice on backyard safety is either aimed at commercial properties or written by people who have not actually walked a residential yard looking for these things. I keep the whole property calendar in one place at backyardverdict.com, month by month, including when each of these is most active and what the check looks like in each season. There is a code on screen if that is easier than typing. That is the only time I will bring it up. Number 5. Poison ivy, poison oak, and poison sumac. This is the one I told you about at the start. Roughly 75% of people react to the oil in these plants, and that includes children who have never reacted before, because sensitivity develops with repeated exposure. A child who touched it last year and was fine can break out this year. And here is the mechanism that catches parents. The oil is called urushiol, and it does not cause a reaction on contact. The rash shows up 12 to 48 hours later. Your child plays in the yard on Saturday, is fine on Sunday, and wakes up Monday morning with blisters on their arms. You take them to the doctor and nobody connects it to the yard because it happened 2 days ago. But the part that really matters is this: urushiol transfers. It gets on shoes, on clothing, on garden tools, on a dog's fur. Your child does not have to touch the plant. They can pet the dog that walked through it and break out the next day on their hands and face. Here is how to identify it, and you need to know all three. Poison ivy. 3 leaflets on a single stem. The middle leaflet has a longer stalk than the 2 sides. Leaf edges can be smooth or toothed. In summer, the leaves are green and glossy. In fall, they turn red. It grows as a ground vine, a climbing vine up trees, or a small shrub. The phrase is leaves of 3, let it be, and it is the single most useful piece of plant identification you can teach a child. One thing almost nobody knows: the vine itself, even without leaves, even in winter, even dead, contains urushiol. A child climbing a tree with a hairy brown vine wrapped around the trunk is touching poison ivy and will not know it until 2 days later. Poison oak. Very similar, also 3 leaflets, but the leaf shape is rounder, like a small oak leaf. More common on the west coast and in the southeast. Poison sumac. This one looks completely different. It is a shrub or small tree with 7 to 13 leaflets, arranged in pairs along a central stem, with smooth edges. It grows in wet, swampy areas. Less common, but the reaction it produces is typically more severe. The dog problem deserves its own moment, because this is how a lot of indoor rashes start. A dog runs through a patch at the back of the yard. Urushiol coats the fur. The dog does not react, because dogs are not sensitive to it. The child hugs the dog an hour later and the oil transfers to their arms, face, and neck. 2 days later, a rash that makes no sense because the child was inside all weekend. If you suspect contact, the washing window matters. Soap and water within the first 6 hours significantly reduces the severity of the reaction. After 6 hours, the oil has bonded to the skin cells, and washing helps less. That is why speed matters. Wash the child first, then the dog, then any clothing or shoes that might have touched the plant. Walk the edges of your yard, especially along fences and tree lines, and look for 3 leaflet clusters. If you find any, do not pull it with bare hands. The oil is in every part of the plant, including the stem and the root, and it remains active on dead plant material for over a year. Gloves, long sleeves, and bag everything without touching it. Then wash the gloves. Number 6. Standing water you forgot about. A wheelbarrow left upside down after rain collects water in the handles. A tarp over firewood sags and holds a pool. A clogged gutter overflows into a low spot behind a bush. A forgotten bucket under a downspout. A kid's wading pool that sat empty for a week and then caught rain. A flower pot saucer sitting behind a planter, out of sight. Standing water is where mosquitoes breed, and in much of the United States, those mosquitoes can carry West Nile virus. A single female lays up to 300 eggs at a time on the surface of still water. It takes 7 to 10 days for larvae to develop into flying adults, which means any water that sits undisturbed for a week is actively producing mosquitoes that will spend the rest of their life within a few hundred yards of where they hatched. Your standing water is not attracting mosquitoes from elsewhere. It is manufacturing your own. And here is the thing most people do not know. A mosquito needs less than a tablespoon of water to complete its life cycle. A bottle cap holds enough. The problem is not the pond in your neighbor's yard. It is the 12 invisible tablespoons of water scattered across yours. But the immediate danger to a small child is simpler and worse. A toddler can drown in 2 inches of water. The Consumer Product Safety Commission has documented drownings in 5-gallon buckets specifically. A child under 4 who can lean over the rim and tip head first cannot get themselves back out. A 5-gallon bucket with rainwater in it is not a container. It is a hazard. The fix is not a product. It is a habit. Walk the yard once a week and tip, drain, or cover anything that holds water every time it rains. And store buckets upside down or inside, always. Number 7. The edge of the property. The fence line, the hedgerow, the back corner where you never mow because it does not matter. That is where everything accumulates. That is where poison ivy grows because nobody walks there. That is where yellow jackets nest because it is undisturbed. That is where broken glass ends up after a storm. That is where ticks wait, because ticks do not jump or fly. They sit on the tip of a tall grass blade or a low shrub branch with their front legs extended, and they grab onto whatever brushes past. That behavior is called questing, and the transition zone between mowed lawn and unmowed edge is exactly where it happens. A deer tick nymph, which is the stage most likely to transmit Lyme disease, is the size of a poppy seed. Your child will not feel it attach and will not see it unless you look. The standard advice is to check after outdoor play, and that is correct, but the better advice is to push that edge back. Mow or trim a 3-foot buffer along every fence line and property boundary so there is no tall vegetation directly adjacent to where kids run. That buffer alone dramatically reduces tick encounters because it removes the questing platform. And that back corner, where the ball rolls and the child follows barefoot through whatever is there. That is where everything on this list overlaps. The vine, the hole, the buried metal, the standing water, the insect nest, and the tick. Twice a year, in spring and in late summer, walk the entire perimeter of your property at ground level, and look at it as if you have never seen it. Move debris, cut back anything you cannot see through. Check for holes, check for metal, check for any 3-leaflet vine crawling up the fence. The perimeter takes 15 minutes, and it is the single check that catches most of the other 6 things on this list, because that is where they live. So here is the whole thing. This weekend, do 3 checks. First, stand under every tree in your yard and look up. Any dead limbs over where kids play get addressed now, not next month. Second, walk the yard once looking for wasps entering a single point at ground level. 30 seconds. Third, walk the perimeterly, from one end of the fence line to the other. Look at the ground. Look at the fence base. Look at what is growing along the edge. Those 3 checks take about 15 minutes total. They cover everything on this list. I am going to ask you something, and I actually want to know. Go down to the comments and tell me which of these 7 you found in your yard, and which one you did not know about. I am asking because the parent reading this next spring is going to scroll down looking for what other people actually found, and your answer is going to matter more to them than anything I can say. And if your kid has already been hurt by one of these, say which one and what happened, not to scare anyone. Because the person standing in their yard tomorrow looking at a dead branch and thinking it is probably fine is going to read your comment and check it instead.